My stepmother demanded that I pay $800 in rent, so I removed her, her two unemployed adult children, and reclaimed the $1,200,000 house my grandparents secretly left to me. Edit. I honestly did not expect this to gain so much attention overnight. Thank you to everyone for the support and feedback. I'll try to respond to questions in the comments where I can. For those claiming this story is fake, I genuinely wish it were. And yes, I do have documentation, but I will not share it due to legal reasons. Edit 2. For clarity, I am a 22-year-old woman. My father is 46. My stepmother Tracy, not her real name, is 43. My stepbrother Brandon is 25, and my stepsister Sierra is 21. Names have been changed for privacy. This will be long, so be prepared. I've been holding this in for weeks and needed to finally get it out. Some background is necessary, and it will matter later. I lost my mother to breast cancer when I was 8. It was devastating, but we managed. My father, however, was completely overwhelmed and barely functioning for about a year. My maternal grandparents stepped in a major way. They were incredibly supportive and essentially moved in to help care for me while my father tried to process his grief and keep his business afloat. This is important. My grandparents were financially comfortable. Not extremely wealthy, but well enough to purchase a large 4-bedroom home in a desirable area of Boston. The idea was that we would all live together so they could help raise me. For a while, it worked very well. Then my father met Tracy about 2 years after my mother passed. They met at a business conference in Chicago. He was expanding his consulting work, and she was an event coordinator. According to him, they connected instantly. Within 3 months, she relocated to be with him, and 6 months later, they were married. Looking back, the warning signs were obvious. Tracy moved in with her 2 children. Brandon was 11 at the time and already entitled. Sierra was 7 and initially fine, but over time became a reflection of her mother. My grandparents were polite but privately skeptical. I overheard them more than once expressing concern that Tracy was motivated by money. They were right, but stayed quiet because my father seemed happy again. The issues started small. Tracy complained about the house decor being outdated, the kitchen needing upgrades, and my grandparents being stuck in their ways. Then she began moving furniture without asking and throwing out items that belonged to my late mother, claiming they collected dust. Gradually, she took over the house. My grandparents avoided confrontation, and my father either didn't notice or chose not to. Eventually, household responsibilities became unbalanced. What began as everyone helping turned into me doing nearly everything. Brandon was too busy with sports, and my father paid for private coaching despite Brandon struggling. Sierra was considered too young, even though she was only a year younger than me. By age 12, I was doing most of the cooking and cleaning. Tracy would inspect my work closely, while Brandon's room was filthy and Sierra left clothes everywhere. Here's the critical detail I only learned recently. My grandmother passed away in 2019 due to heart issues. My grandfather followed 3 months later. Before they died, they legally placed the house in my name. It was done quietly. My father knew, but never told me. Tracy didn't know either, or she would have tried to change that immediately. So for years, I was effectively a live-in maid in a home I legally owned. I cooked, cleaned, and handled laundry for everyone, including Brandon's gym clothes, while Tracy criticized how I loaded the dishwasher. Brandon graduated college 2 years ago. Barely. He hasn't worked since and claims he's pursuing content creation, despite having minimal engagement online. Sierra is in her 3rd year of college, supposedly studying business, but spends most of her time partying and posting on social media. My father pays for her apartment, car, and credit cards. Meanwhile, I worked part-time at Starbucks, took online classes, managed the household, and saved money, while Tracy hinted that I should start contributing financially. The situation finally came to a head after a long shift at work. I came home exhausted and still had to cook dinner. While I was preparing food, Tracy sat down and announced that we needed to discuss my living arrangement. She explained that since I was working, I should begin paying rent, $800 per month plus utilities, while continuing to help around the house. I calmly asked whether Brandon and Sierra would also be paying rent. She said no, explaining that they were still finding their footing, while Brandon pursued content creation and Sierra focused on school. That's when something changed for me. Years of unequal treatment added up. I turned off the stove, put down the spoon, and asked for everyone to come to the dining room. Once everyone was seated, Tracy repeated her plan confidently. Brandon looked pleased. Sierra recorded on her phone. When she finished, I said plainly, "I'm not paying rent. This house belongs to me." The room went silent. Then they laughed. Brandon mocked the idea. Sierra treated it like entertainment. Tracy tried to dismiss it, but was visibly unsettled. I suggested she call my father. She did, putting the call on speaker. After a pause, my father confirmed the truth. My grandparents had legally transferred the house into my name before they passed. That was the moment everything changed. "What do you mean they put it in her name?" Tracy nearly screams. "When were you planning to tell me this?" "I didn't think it was that important," my father replies quietly. Honestly, that response was very typical of him. Tracy stands up so fast that her chair scrapes loudly against the floor. You didn't think it mattered that your teenage daughter legally owns our house?" She hangs up on him mid-sentence. The phone hits the table hard enough that I expect the screen to crack. I almost hope it does. Brandon is no longer laughing. His face goes pale as the reality sinks in, that the gaming room he once told me to stay out of actually belongs to me. Sierra keeps recording, but her expression changes completely. It's the look of someone realizing their planned content is falling apart. Tracy is breathing heavily, as if she just ran a race in her overpriced heels. She tries to steady herself, though her hands are clearly shaking. "Well," she says, forcing calm, "this has clearly been a misunderstanding. Of course you don't have to pay rent, Lucy. Let's just forget this ever happened." That was not something I was willing to forget. I was done overlooking years of disrespect, done being treated like household help while others lived comfortably in my home. I smiled and replied, "We're definitely not forgetting this conversation. In fact, I think it's time we talk about your living situation." The look on her face was unforgettable. While they sat there processing this shift, Tracy's phone began vibrating repeatedly with messages from my father. She ignored them, but I knew exactly what was happening. He was likely reviewing the legal documents my grandparents left behind, documents confirming everything I had just said. That night, I went to bed feeling something I hadn't felt in years: confident. It felt like standing up to a longtime bully and finally being heard. But Tracy was not finished. The next morning, as I headed downstairs, I heard her voice coming from the kitchen. She was on the phone with my father, speaker on, as usual, and she was trying to convince him to remove me from my own house. I recorded the conversation. "Mark, you have to deal with this," Tracy said. "Your daughter is creating problems." My father sounded exhausted. "What do you want me to do?" "She applied to out-of-state schools," Tracy replied. "Encourage her to go. Tell her it will help her independence." She was trying to send me away so she could stay in my house without paying a cent. Then she changed tactics. "I'm worried about her mental health," she added softly. "All this anger isn't healthy." That was the moment that truly hurt. When my father said, "Maybe you're right. I'll talk to her about moving out. It might be best." I stayed quiet and walked into the kitchen as if I had heard nothing. Tracy nearly dropped her phone when she saw me. She greeted me sweetly and claimed she had made coffee, despite using the machine I bought myself. Brandon eventually wandered in, followed by Sierra, already dressed and camera ready. Breakfast was tense. Brandon scrolled on his phone. Sierra staged photos. Tracy pretended to read emails while clearly researching eviction laws. "Tracy," I said calmly, "I was thinking about what you said yesterday about rent." She perked up immediately. I continued, "You're right. People should pay rent here." Her relief lasted seconds. "Based on local market rates," I added, $1,200 per person seems reasonable. That would be $3,600 total, not including utilities. There will also be a security deposit." Chaos followed. Brandon nearly choked on his cereal. Sierra dropped her food onto her clothes. Tracy looked like she might faint. "We're family," she protested. "I'm serious," I replied, pulling out my phone. "And since family matters, let's discuss your plan to send me out of state." When I played the recording, the room erupted. Tracy accused me of recording illegally. I calmly reminded her we live in a one-party consent state and that it was my house. She paced, muttering about calling a lawyer, then tried guilt instead. I shut it down clearly. I'm not leaving. The deed is in my name. That's when she completely lost control. She yelled, accused me of destroying the family, and threatened to make my life miserable. Unfortunately for her, I recorded that too. I had already consulted a lawyer. Threatening the legal homeowner, it turns out, is not wise. My grandparents had done more than transfer the house. They had placed it into a protected trust, making it legally untouchable. My lawyer laughed when she reviewed Tracy's messages. The following day, I served formal eviction notices to all three of them. Tracy refused to accept the papers, but refusal doesn't stop the process. Brandon reacted by destroying his gaming chair. Sierra live-streamed her breakdown and gained followers. Tracy, however, completely unraveled, calling every lawyer she could find. And that's where things truly began to end. In a small community, everyone knows everyone. After the first few attorneys told Tracy she had no case, the message spread quickly. Even her cousin, who handles DUI cases, refused to get involved. With legal options gone, she turned to social media. She posted a long, emotional Facebook post claiming her ungrateful stepdaughter was trying to make her family homeless. That strategy failed almost immediately when one of my late mother's close friends publicly commented with documented examples of how Tracy had treated me over the years. For context, this friend, Elise, had been quietly saving screenshots for a long time. That evidence changed the narrative entirely. What followed was unexpected but telling. Tracy's country club friends began distancing themselves. Apparently, they were less interested in maintaining friendships with someone facing eviction. Funny how social circles shift under pressure. Meanwhile, Brandon and Sierra were dealing with consequences of their own. Brandon finally accepted that content creation was not a viable career when his account stalled at under 300 followers. He applied for traditional jobs but struggled to explain his experience. Sierra's situation unraveled after her sorority friends learned the truth through her own private posts. Rumors spread about her lifestyle, her designer items, and her family's finances. She was clearly spiraling. The most serious incident occurred when Tracy made a final attempt to assert control. While I was at work, she tried to reorganize the house. In reality, she attempted to take my mother's jewelry, items my grandparents had specifically left to me. Fortunately, I had installed security cameras after serving eviction notices. I caught everything on video. I contacted the police, filed a report, and provided the footage. Tracy claimed she was only moving items that didn't belong to her. That explanation didn't hold. The officer made it clear that attempting to remove property belonging to the legal homeowner was not a family issue. I chose not to press charges immediately, as having an official record strengthened the eviction case. My lawyer fully supported that decision. As the eviction progressed, more truths surfaced. Tracy's claims of independent wealth and investment accounts turned out to be false. She had nowhere to go. She contacted my aunt for help, but my aunt simply sent her apartment listings instead. I felt momentary guilt until I remembered Tracy donating my mother's Christmas ornaments without asking. At some point, my father finally took a position. He told Tracy that if she didn't leave peacefully, he would not follow her. Even he seemed worn down after years of conflict. Before the final eviction deadline, Tracy attempted one last performance. She called a family meeting and arrived dressed in what she claimed was a vintage designer suit. She delivered a prepared speech about choosing to leave and taking the high road. Then she claimed she and my father had purchased a new home in Florida. That claim was false. I had already seen her online fundraising page requesting housing assistance, which raised very little. My father wasn't even present. He had been staying at a hotel after witnessing the attempted theft. While Tracy was mid-speech, the movers I had hired arrived. Their timing was deliberate. They began packing immediately, following court-approved instructions. Tracy protested, demanded more time, and claimed ownership over various items. The movers explained that all belongings would be placed in storage and that disputes could be addressed legally. She lost control at that point. Brandon struggled to disconnect his equipment. Sierra was upset about losing her filming space. Tracy insisted random items were heirlooms, including items she previously dismissed as worthless. Ironically, several of her designer items revealed questionable labels during packing. Throughout this, I sat quietly, observing. Messages began coming in from people who said they were not surprised by any of it. The inventory of attempted removals included several of my mother's necklaces, my grandmother's china, my coffee maker, all household towels, and even the garage door opener. I replaced what I needed. The rest wasn't worth recovering. The eviction walkthrough was completed with a sheriff's deputy present. Tracy attempted to claim property damage, but the presence of surveillance footage ended that quickly. Currently, Tracy and my father are staying with her sister. Brandon sold his gaming equipment and found work. Sierra moved between relatives and now commutes to school. Their situations have changed significantly. As for me, the house is quiet, peaceful. I've repurposed rooms to fit my life. I'm no longer paying for others' expenses. My father checks in occasionally. He sounds tired, but clearer. Was I too harsh? Possibly. Do I regret it? No. Actions have consequences. Elise now rents one of the spare rooms. She's helping me restore what was lost and teaching me my mother's recipes. Something good came from all of this. Thank you to everyone who followed this story and offered advice. I'm grateful for the support. Final edits. Yes, this is real. No, I won't share footage. And yes, I'm taking care of myself. End.